Okay, we're going to take that information we learned about how to do a house and like the sun and shade it a little bit, and we're going to do a landscape. Look at that house. Isn't that gorgeous? A little church, and there's some trees behind it. That's the background, the trees. Middle ground's the house. Look at this. Gorgeous. Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Anybody been there? Great place. There's the Grand Teton Mountains off in the background. The middle ground is the hill, and the foreground is the Snake River with the tree. See the blue there? That's a river. What a great name for a river, Snake. Everyone should have somebody in their family named Snake. Okay, so we're drawing this mountain. It's coming along. It's looking good. Nice and jaggedy. You can do your mountains any way you want, ladies and gentlemen. We have a better drawer for this one. This is my guest drawer, Mrs. McWilliams. I saw the birds she draws. I was quite impressed. Now what she's doing right now, she's laying down a line for the bottom of the mountain, but also the top of the hills that kind of undulate or roll. And see how that line's not perfect? Guys, you go outside and you look at nature, you don't see perfect lines. You don't see right angles, straight lines. Well, and if you do, it's a building or steps. But rocks, trees, hills, none of those are straight. So you don't really have to use a ruler for this. Okay, now it's time to put in something closer to us. So what's she going to do? Looks like we're doing the river. Some trees. Guess I was wrong. Trees. Right there. Much better drawer than me. That's a nice pine tree. Did you draw that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not that great.
It's going to be fine. Because what we're going to do is we're doing actually painting. And so we're giving ourselves some guidelines for when we're painting so that we kind of know where to put the different colors. Obviously, the trees aren't going to be blue. They're going to be more green, right? And things like this. Okay, there's a bird right there. What kind of bird is that?
I have no idea.
Oh, it's the no idea bird. It must live around here. That's good.
Okay, so
let's use this one.
let's
I like
use
that
this
one
one
anyway.
Okay.
Because that probably doesn't live in Wyoming. But here we go. So this is a thrush, which I always want to say brush, but at any rate, because there's great colors on it. Orange, it's got some yellow in the belly. Now, Mrs. McWilliams is way better at drawing these things than me. So here she is. She's starting off with a big oval, and then she's doing the head. Now, I want you to notice what she's doing is she's starting off with the bigger shapes and then going to the details later. So we got a big body, head, beak. Now she's adding the wings to the body. Very nice. Okay, 2 wings. And then some feet. Now those feet are going to go off of a branch pretty soon because we don't want our bird just floating in the air. Also, notice how big that bird is? That bird could crush the mountains in the background, right? No, that's not the way it works. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you drive away from your house, your cat does not get crushed. Your house does not crush your animals. They're safe. Everything gets smaller as it goes back in the distance. Now she's making branches, and she's doing a branch, off a branch, off a branch, a branch, off a branch, off a branch. It's a really good way of doing trees. See that branch goes off a branch, off a branch, off a branch. And then a branch, off of a branch, off of a branch. Doesn't that look realistic? Pretty simple, too. Always had a hard time with trees. All right. So what's the next part we're going to do now? We got the tree in the foreground blocked out, the bird sitting on. We got some trees there right in front of the Snake River. And then we have the mountain, the Grand Tetons, and of course the moon off in the background. What a great scene. Looks like Mrs. McWilliams is going for it, ladies and gentlemen. She's grabbing the water. She's putting water on the paper. Wait a minute, there's no color in there. What technique is this called, Mrs. McWilliams?
Wet on wet.
Wet on wet. All right. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to get crazy around here. We got some colors coming in, watercolors. Oh. And look at them spread out. Now, notice how the blue that she's putting down right now is not spreading into the mountains because the mountains aren't wet, just the sky. And she's grabbing some other colors, and she's kind of mixing them a little bit.
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Now I am.
Now she's mixing a little bit. A little ahead of me. A little purple in there. And she's put this down. That might seem kind of intense for you. You might be like, I don't know. Don't worry. Strap yourselves in. We're going to show you how to do this wet on wet. There's some ways of fixing it, and there's some ways of changing it. She's changing colors. Now, Mrs. McWilliams, later on, there's a technique we can use so we don't mix our colors up. If we want to have just one color, we're not doing wet on wet, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But right now, we want these things to kind of blend, putting those groovy colors in there. Oh, dot, dot. It's okay. Oh, no, our painting's destroyed. Let's throw it out. No, just get a piece of paper. I'll wipe it up. It's fine. Because we're going to paint over top of it. Okay. Let's blend those colors, Mrs. McWilliams.
I kind of like how it's feathering.
Spread them out.
What is this called?
Wet on wet. Woohoo!
No, what's this paint called?
Watercolor?
Liquid watercolor.
All right. So, what if we think those colors might be a little intense? How can we lighten them up a little bit?
I'm not finished yet.
I guess art takes a long time, doesn't it?
It's got some bubbles in there.
Got some bubbles in there. Boy, if I saw that sunset, I don't know, I might go back in the house. Like, did something happen? Anyway, so
I think it's pretty.
It is really pretty. Those colors are great. What she's going to do is she's taking a paper towel and she's blotting, kind of drying it just a little bit, and look at that, how it blends those colors, and it dries them up, and it takes a little bit of the intensity out. But also now if she wants to work over top of it, she can, but it looks nice and blended like a good sunset should. All right. What's the next thing we're going to do?
We're going to try this. I don't know if it's going to work. Oh, this one will work. This will work for the
Trees, right?
landscape.
Wow. Why are you putting colors everywhere?
This is a brown liquid watercolor.
That's sort of like the grass off in the distance.
Yeah, I was thinking about the texture of this sand in the landscape, and that I thought that kind of looked like it. And now if I wanted to, I could add some lines to it.
Oh, you know, I've seen a lot of artists paint, and I notice what a lot of them do is they'll get colors and kind of smear it around a little bit, and it kind of helps them because when you have that white piece of paper, it's almost daunting sometimes. It's so perfect. And it's kind of nice to put some marks down and realize that you're going to put a bunch of marks on this paper and you're going to blend things. You can dry things off. You can paint over things. It's okay. It's kind of nice to have it kind of loose in the beginning. You don't want to start with a painting and have it really, really tight. Just do little trees and things like this. That's the way Mr. McWilliams would probably do it. Nice and loose like this to slowly build up these colors.
Okay, now I'm going to go back in and use some dark watercolor with a paint tray, and you have to add some water to wake that up. We're going to go back and do this kind of dark line of the mountains.
Oh, that really kind of anchors the mountains off. And now it looks like she's using wet brush. After she's got that big dark line, looks like she's pulling into some water and kind of spreading it around. Spreading some other colors in there to really differentiate the mountains from the sky, from the kind of sandy, grassy area. Those mountains are kind of blue steel, aren't they? That's neat.
You could use a bigger brush for this part too, and it would look really cool.
So because we did one section, the sky, and kind of blotted it after we were finished, and let it dry for a little bit, and then worked on the sandy, grassy area, and kind of dried that a little bit, and then we work on the mountains, those colors aren't just all blending. If you got your whole paper wet, it'll be really hard to control where the paint goes. You do kind of want to let watercolors kind of flow and move. It's not really a really exact medium, and that's what's kind of fun to use it. So you can kind of see where it goes and use these different techniques. We've learned two techniques. One is blotting, and one is wet on wet.
Okay, I'm gonna wait to fix the mountains. They're just kind of where they're at right now. And now I'm gonna go into the details of the trees.
So she darkened this area back here because it's further back in
Yeah,
that grassy, sandy area, and it makes it look like it goes back in the space. That's another way of doing it besides just making the things bigger and smaller, is the cool colors, which are like blue and things like that, look like they go back in the space. And as things get closer to you, the colors get more and more intense. If you saw a bird way off in the distance, it might just look like a black speck. But when you see it up close, it might have all those wonderful colors, like our thrush that we're going to put in there.
okay, I'm gonna spray down the trees,
You're spraying that with watercolor?
just water.
Just water.
And I'm gonna mix up a good green that I am happy with this liquid watercolor.
Okay.
And it might be kind of a brownish green, I think. We'll see what I come up with.
Oh, look at that paint dot went right where the eye for the bird. That's amazing. That's what we call a happy accident. So this is this pine tree. Pine trees don't necessarily have to have, see all the branches. You kind of sometimes just see the colors. Look out the window. If you see those trees over the hill, over the bike rack, they're just kind of gray almost looking, you know? They don't really have a lot of details. And you look at the pine trees up past the stairs, you can see them a little better, but you can't see each branch. It's kind of more just like green colors. There was some darker green and a little lighter green. Look out the windows. We have these great windows in this art room, and you can see nature right outside the art room, but you also have these wonderful examples that you can look at that show you other places besides Ohio. All right.
Okay, we're ready to do the bird.
Now, are we going to use watercolor pencils?
Yeah, we're gonna use watercolor pencils for the bird.
So we're going to use watercolor pencils on the bird because watercolor pencils are a tighter medium. So you're going to see this. We want more detail on a bird. Now notice what she's doing. She's taking the paper towel, wiping up around where the bird is, making sure that area where we're going to draw on the bird isn't wet. Because we don't want to do wet on wet on our bird.
Okay.
Front of the bird has got that really nice orange right under its beak on its head, and its chest is kind of orange. And then if you notice, below the chest, it gets almost yellow. I love that. And those orangey spots on the wings, a little orange dot on the back of his head. What a pretty bird. So see how the pencil is more exact? Now, that being said, we're still going to use a little water on this later to kind of blend. You know how you like taking pencils and blending in with your finger? Same kind of thing, except we're not going to use our finger here. We're going to use a watercolor or water and a brush, and they'll kind of blend some of these colors on the bird to make it look more realistic. A lot of the gray back there. And remember, if we do something we don't like, we can always go back and blot it by using a paper towel.
Or paint over it.
Or paint over it. And then blot it with a paper towel and draw on it again, and then add more water, or not. You go back and forth on it. Don't just work on it one time. Notice how we started off in the background, then went to the middle ground, then went to the mountains, then did the trees. Now we're working on the bird. All these things slowly come together. You don't want your bird just floating in space. We want a really great artwork you can take home to your parents, your aunt, grandma, somebody is really going to love to see this. I think this thrush is really coming along here. Hey, Mrs. McWilliams.
Yeah.
You know how Darth Vader eats his spaghetti?
No.
He uses the fork.
Really?
Yeah, it's true. True fact.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good one. It's an oldie but a goodie.
I think someone small told me.
Oh, he's getting kind of big. All right, so we're doing these wings here. Notice how she's put the details and slowly building blending with those watercolor pencils. Later on, we can smear around, but it's really nice to have this bird really detailed because it is in the foreground, closest to us, and we can see all the details. And if you look off in the background, you see those mountains. They're drying up. All that stuff's drying. The only thing that's still a little wet is those pine trees behind the paper that Miss McQuinn is holding. She's working on the branch. Remember, we talked about this before. Branch off of a branch off of a branch. And that's a nice way to show limbs because it's not just a stick. And I don't know about you guys, but I've seen some drawing at other school, and all those kids live near broccoli forests. I don't know what a broccoli forest looks like, but apparently it's not in Oxford. Kramer kids draw branches off branches, not the broccoli forest.
All right. It's getting close.
Woo!
Okay, let's
Mrs. McWilliams, did you just draw that? Now you can take the color pencils and watercolor pencils, excuse me. Notice how she's going over top of the tree now. She's using, what color is that, Mrs. McWilliams?
It's like a black.
It's a black, dark green, something, blue maybe, and she's going back and putting the details.
I kind of ripped my paper there a little bit, so I'm going to go back over that.
That's fine. And kind of go over top of. She did not start with these details, because if she started with these details on the trees, it would have all got blended. So you start loose with wet on wet, you blot, then you work different areas of the paper. You work in the background, and then the middle ground, right? Then we did the mountains. Then she did the trees, and then the bird, and then slowly working from wet on wet to blotting, and now with a watercolor pencil. And that watercolor pencil is actually still blending just a little bit because there's still a little water on the paper, but she's adding those details. They're really making that mountain pop.
Okay, we're about done. Just wanted to show you some of these fun techniques. One of the other fun things you can do is you can also, with your sunset, add some water in the background.
Now,
And that kind of mixes the colors too.
yeah, see how she went over top of the lines on where the mountains were with a little bit of water, and it kind of like loosened it up a little bit. Going back over, adding some more color in. Wow. This project would be great to spend about 2 art periods on. The first art period, you do a lot of the drawing. In the second art period, you can do a lot of the painting.